go to our home page, we've got a little search icon here. We can just hit search. That's going to pull us into browse projects, and that's beautiful, ready to go. So what we want to do now is search by part of vehicle. So we want to create a browse page that we can actually just, let's you know what, let's start our server. That might help us. npm run dev. I'm already on the branch. That's running. Let's bump that up. Don't need this one. Cool. So in this project, we already have a search directory. So that's going to be our search page. But what I want to quickly show you is basically the rough design that we have. So what we want to do here, it's a browse page. So we want to do this so that the search engines can actually follow these links. And it's basically becoming kind of like a sitemap as well as a browsing page. So we want to search for builds. First, we're going to click the manufacturer. Once you've clicked the manufacturer, we want to load the models. Once you click the model, we want to grab all the different attributes that those models have assigned to them. So we don't want to basically have any routes that return nothing. So the first piece of this puzzle here in the search page, if we jump in here, you can see we have a search page. And what we're going to do here is we're going to use query params. So I'm going to bump that up. We're going to use query params to pass through the variables so that we can use those to show which tag is selected and also make the request to the server to return the data that's filtered in a specific way. All right, so to kick this off, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use use router. So we're going to import use router from next router. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say const query is equal to use router. And inside of that, we're going to have manufacturer ID and manufacturer model ID. That's what we're going to get outside of the use router. Then from here, what we're going to do is we're going to start setting up this page. So we're going to copy the layout that we have on the other pages just to match the size and the margin from the top here. So to do that, we're going to use the flex component there. And we're going to enter that in. So we get a margin top of 8 and a direction of column. That's there. Next piece is we actually want to have that browse wording as a heading. So I'm just going to grab that one here. There we go. Browse projects. So then the next piece, what we want to do is we want to create tag groups. So each one, well, the way I'm seeing this is that each one of these things can be a component called a tag. I'm going to call it a tag group or a filter group. Probably a filter group because we're browsing, we're going to filter. Inside of that, what we need there is we need a title of the component, and then inside here we're going to have children, and these are going to be tags. We want to be able to loop through our data set, so it could be manufacturers, it could be manufacturer models, it could be an attribute and its values, or possible values. Then we want to loop through those and actually display those so that when you can click them. When you click them, we're going to use an anchor tag so that it actually changes the URL. And the reason being is that you can copy that URL then. Instead of storing in state, where nothing will change in the URL, we want the URL to change so that someone could copy this URL and share it and say, hey, look, here's a whole bunch of Ford Rangers in black, and let's share it to a friend. And then when that friend visits that search page, it's going to show the exact same results. So to get started with that one, we're going to go into components. I'm going to create a new folder here called browse. I'll rename this to browse projects. Inside of this, what we're going to have is a new directory called a filter group. And this is our main component here. So I'm just going to see what we got here earlier. So I've actually, before we had the crash, I worked on this. So this group here, what do we have? We have a filter group component that accepts children and accepts the title. So basically the children are the tags and the title is the word of the thing, so, of the group. So inside of search, we're going to grab filter group and we're going to put that in here. Right. Nope. And here we have children. Let's see what we got. Okay, we just got a little error here. Cool, so we have manufacturer children. And then the same thing goes again. So if we want to have our next group here, we're going to have model children. Okay. So inside of the filter group, we're going to create a new component. And this is going to be called tag. So we're going to set up the index. Now, whoops, I already did that wrong. Inside a tag, we're going to create a new folder called index.tsx. Here we're going to have a component. And I've prepared one earlier. So what I'm doing here is, because we're calling it tag as well, I've got a conflict from Chakra. So we're just importing tag as base tag. We've got tag props, we've got the children, which is basically just going to be the title. We've got the href, which is string. And then we've got whether it's selected. And then what we're doing here is we're changing the background color. So if a tag is selected, we want black background. If it's not, we're going to use gray 100. If it's selected, we're going to have the color being white. Otherwise, the color is black. So it basically just inverts, almost inverts. We're going to use the cursor of pointer. And we're also going to say as a, because we want this as an anchor tag. Now, we'll save that out. And here now, inside the filter group, we can import the tag. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add to filter group a property called tag, which was the tag component. And what we're doing here is we're basically giving control outside of this parent component, so we don't have to pass props through to get to the tag. We can actually just use this in this way. It's probably easiest to show. So now what we can do is filter group.tag, and here we can say tag name. We've now given control outside of this. We can now control all the props from here rather than being inside of the parent and having it, you know, in order to get to the tag, we have to pass through tag props and pass through an array that loops through. We can now do all that work outside here and we have way more control. So if we just do this, we can see here we go, we've got a tag. Okay. So, and then if we go is selected, it's now like this. So, and we can also have here href equals, and then we can say manufacturer ID equals 1. Let's say search, right? Now if we hover over that and we click it, you see this URL changes and we can actually go from there. So if we go like this, we're going to add a few more. We're going to have 2, 3, 4. We only got one of them selected. Save that out. That's what we look like. All right. And the same thing goes here. So now we can just put this in here, and this can be model, right? Just to show you what it looks like different. Right, so that's what we're going to end up with once we've got our data in there. Cool. So what we need to do now is we're going to set up a hook that we can call. I like to have the logic outside of the component. And some people don't like hooks. I love hooks. But I like using hooks to contain all the logic for a specific page or a specific model. And this is kind of like, I guess it's like a specific feature, which is browsing. So what we're going to do here is we're going to set up a new hook called use browse projects. And I'll grab the one that I did earlier. So what we're doing in here is we're importing trpc. So that's our query, or basically our endpoint. We're passing in options, which is the manufacturer ID. This comes in the options here, and we're using the type. And then we're loading manufacturers. We're looking for manufacturers that have type vehicle, and we're going to just grab the data out. Then we're going to load models. We're only going to run this query if we have a manufacturer ID. And the great thing about React Query is if we change this ID, it will rerun because it wouldn't haven't fetched that yet. And then we're going to just return these two things out: manufacturers, manufacturer models. So outside of our hook, let's just close this off. When we look inside of the search here, we can now import use browse projects. And the convention I like to use is browse projects payload. So basically the hook name, payload. And then inside of here, we're going to pass in manufacturer ID and manufacturer model ID, which is what we're getting from the query string. Right? And now what we can do here is just go console log, what's the browse projects payload. All right? Let's see what happens. Just going to open up the inspect here. Console. Just refresh the page. Now look what we got. So the query's run, and we've got a list of manufacturers. Okay? We haven't got any models yet because we haven't selected a manufacturer. So the next piece of the puzzle is we're going to pass from this payload, we're going to pass and loop through and create tags based on the manufacturers that we have available. So from here, we're going to go destructure browse projects payload. We're going to grab manufacturers. Right, and then what we're going to do here is we're going to say, cool, we're going to loop through these guys. Map, manufacturer. You're on the right track there. Like this. Yep, I'm just thinking out loud here. Do we need to do we want to return him straight away, or do we want to do an explicit return like this? So I'm just going to have this here. So it's not ID name, it's got an ID. Let's just check what we have. So we have inside of manufacturer, we have an ID, we have a key, and we have a title. So what we're going to use here is title and ID. So we're going to go ID, title from manufacturer. Then we're going to return a filter group tag, right? So, right, we're going to do that. We do, looks like we got a syntax error here. Yeah, that needs to be that guy, and then we needed that guy. Sorry, this one, this one, this one. There we go. We need a key. Whenever we loop through something in React, we need a key, so we're going to use the ID for that, because that's unique. You know that's unique. It's key, there. Okay, so we've seen a little bit of a rendering issue already. We need that to flow on. Cool, so what we're going to do here is we're going to use the title as a child. Right. Now what we need to do is just fix this filter group. So the filter group flex, and then we need to have wrap, flex wrap, right? So we just want that, when it hits the end, we want it to wrap down. We don't want it to just try and squash everything in. There we go. So obviously what we can see now is that our tags actually need some sort of bottom. So we can do, we got margin right there, so we're going to say margin bottom, it's 1 as well, just to give us a nice layout there. It's also showing everything is selected because I'm using this prop here. So what we want to do now is we want to say this tag is selected if manufacturer ID is equal to its ID. So if the ID we're getting from the URL matches, then a tag's selected. So at the moment, nothing's selected, right? The next piece of the puzzle is we want to go here and actually have the URL correct. So we want to say the href to this piece is search. We also want to be able to interpolate the string, so we're going to use the backticks like this, and we're going to inject the ID there. Now every tag will have search manufacturer ID as ID. So what this is going to do when you click on a manufacturer again, it's going to reset everything because we've removed, basically we're not caring about what model selected, we're just resetting the search string straight down. So now if we click on Mazda, reloads the page, sets the manufacturer ID, and now you can see selected. So click on Ford, Ford, Holden, Holden. So we've now got the ability to click and also show what we've clicked. Now we're going to do almost exactly the same thing. What we've noticed now is we have set manufacturer ID. You can now see that there are models. So because we've clicked on Holden, we're now getting Holden Colorado and Rodeo. So this is one of the beauties of React Query, in my opinion. This is the way it caches data and only returns out the data that you need, rather than when we use Redux and we store entities in an entity store. You then are in charge of filtering that data again. I just really love the simplicity of how React Query works. And it's definitely something that I just always want to use now. Don't have to worry about filtering many entities. So if we jump back into Ford, this will show again what we got now is a different set of models. Everest, F-150, F-150 Raptor, yeah, the boys. And then we got the Ranger Raptor over there as well. So that's awesome. So that means that our manufacturer models coming out of this hook over here, if we grab that, we can now do exactly the same thing here, right? So now when we filter through models, I'm going to map through them. Manufacturer model. And we're going to return out of this. So we're going to return, I'll grab the same. Basically, it's a similar concept to this guy. I don't know why that happened. Fix that up. And then here we're going to do this. It's very, very similar code. Manufacturer model. And we're going to say ID, yep. And then we're going to say, we want to make sure. So now with the model, we want to keep the manufacturer ID the same, right? So it's whatever's selected. So this will be manufacturer ID, right? Then from there, we're going to say, and manufacturer model ID is ID. So Copilot straight onto that. Now what we also want to do is we want to say whatever's selected in the URL string, the model ID is equal to the ID. That's what model was selected. And then we're going to render out the title. So it's very similar, but different. And we're going to just drop this off. Don't need that anymore. Hit save. There we go. So now what we can see is click on Ford, here are all your models. Click on Mitsubishi, there are all your models. Toyota, boom. Now if we click Hilux, it appends it to the URL, and now we've got Toyota Hilux. Ford, Ranger Raptor. And away we go. So now we've got filtering. We are now able to select IDs that we have, and then show them and now pass this data up to the server to actually filter our results. So on the next step, we'll go through passing this data up to trpc and actually fetching the payload and then rendering those projects out. Stay tuned. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to query the server and actually grab the data filtered by manufacturer ID. And then, if we're passing the manufacturer model ID, we're going to filter by that. And so we'll get started from there. So the first piece of the puzzle is I'm just going to close all these tabs just to avoid. So we're going to use the we're going to do inside of the use projects hook. We're also going to just quickly add in the manufacturer model ID here, which is optional. Cool. So we need to go into the server, trpc, router, and now what we're looking for is projects. And what we want to do here is just see what we've already got. So we've got a few methods. So inside the projects router, we have create project, claim projects, get projects, which just looks for limit and user ID. It's not quite what we want. We've got get recent projects, get similar projects, get project by ID, get project by slug, update, and that's it. So what we want is it's similar to get projects. And now I guess what we can do here is say, we could just modify this one. So let's just see where this is used first. Get projects, no. This is get project images, get projects. So we use this in the projects component, parts, images, image by ID, part. So I mean, if we add this guy, there we go. So it's only being used in one place, which is in the projects component. So let's just see where that is. So it's on the users page. So this is basically, so what this does is this is filtering projects by user. That's all this is doing at the moment. So what we can do here, we can probably update this one. So the two things that we want to look for here is manufacturer ID, and that is going to be a z.string.optional, thank you, and then a manufacturer model, which is also a z-string optional, right? Just going to sort those. So now what I've done in this here is I have filters set up as an object, and that's an empty object. I only add to the filter if we have an input value. And that's how we set up, because we pass this filters here to this project thing here. So what we're going to do is basically it's mimicking this up here. So we're going to say if input.manufacturer.id, then we're going to say filters dot not manufacturer model, manufacturer is equal to. I'm just wondering if this guy's trying to stitch me up. So the easiest way to do this, I find, when I'm writing this before here, is I just go where, and then just get Prisma to help me along the way. So manufacturer. Okay. So this is what's getting us here. So there isn't a manufacturer relation on the project itself. It actually lives, so if we look at the Prisma schema, so if we look at project, model, so you can see here we only have the model, because a model can only belong to one manufacturer. So if we know the model, we know the manufacturer. So what we need to do here is we actually have to say manufacturer model, and then inside here, we're going to say manufacturer ID is equal to the input dot manufacturer ID, right? So that's what we're trying to achieve here. So we can say, cool. So when we have a manufacturer ID pass through, we're going to say filters manufacturer model is equal to manufacturer ID input there. Okay. So I can get rid of that, reset that. So that's for model. Manufacturer. I'm just going to label these so it's a bit easier to see when you're working in it. And then we're going to have model. So we're going to say if input.manufacturer model. We're going to ignore the manufacturer now, because we already know that through the model. So we're going to say manufacturer model ID is that, right? So it's pretty simple for that one. So it's like the project, if we supply manufacturer model ID, we know that. We don't need to care about the manufacturer because it's going to be the same. Cool. So we can have filter by manufacturer, model, and user. So we can now use, when we load projects, so inside our thing here, we're going to say const projects query is equal to trpc dot projects Yes, dot get projects. Yep. Use query. And what we're going to do here is we're going to pass up the thing. So we can say manufacturer ID. We can also say manufacturer model ID. And it should be as simple as that. If I'm not missing anything. And we're going to just call it that. Well, Copilot's really good sometimes. LMNOP. What's the problem here? Rendered more hooks. Okay, that's fine because we added a hook. Let's just refresh the page. What we're going to do here is spitting out projects. And now we can see we've got 0 projects. Do I not have any forward ranges? Let's just double, whoops, sorry. Double check, open that in a new tab. I definitely think we've got, no, it doesn't look like we have any ranges in our thing. So if we look for, we know we definitely have a F-150. Is it a Raptor? Yep. So we're going to hit that. Projects, nothing. Okay. What is this one? Just have to make sure that the models are actually set properly. It's a Raptor R. Ford F-150 Raptor R. Let's see what this is. Ford F-150. So it's not actually, that's what it is there. So if we change that to there, hopefully we get one. There we go. Awesome, so it works. There we've got one project. So what that means now is we can actually loop through these and show them. Let's see, our designer has not added any screenshots of that yet. So that's fine. The designer shall remain unnamed. So from here, we're going to hit projects. And we're going to do, just for the time being, underneath the filter group, we're going to just go projects.map, project, and we're going to return, for now, we're just literally going to return a div and just say project.title. And we're going to just destructure this again. Great. So we can just use title there. So this is up. What's that problem? It's not used. So there we go. We got our results. So how do we render our results? We're just gonna we'll probably do the same thing here as we did in the filter group. So we can say browse. Let's go into components, browse projects. And we're gonna say results. Let's just create. I just want to set this up as a component. TSX. The reason I paused there was I'm just thinking, should we maybe pull these things out into components? So we could have manufacturer filters, model filters, and then it's just going to tidy up the search page and have everything in the components. If we ever want to use this logic again, we can use those components. But I think for now we'll just leave this as is. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to have, I'm going to set up this like similar to a filter group. So we're just going to set a new component, drop this in here. This is going to be results. We need the text. And we're going to call this results. Okay, so inside here, let's grab results. So we've got results here now, and we got that. So with results, we're going to pass in projects. Okay. And that just means this gets in here, it gets projects, which is just an object array for now. I'll fix that type soon. So we don't have children anymore. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab this. Cool. And this is going to go here. Great. So same thing, just in a component now. And then inside of this, we've got a special thing. So on our homepage, we have recent projects. So I want to just grab the same. So it's the index, and this is part of recent projects, and recent project uses the project tile. Okay, so we're using a simple grid, so we can actually just grab all of this because we want our results to look very much the same. So it's not flex anymore. It's this guy, and we need simple grid. Project tile, we need to import that. So we're reusing components here, so we don't have to write them again. Okay, and what is recent project tile? What are you expecting? It's inspecting a project. It needs images. But I mean, you can see here, we're getting the result now, so that's awesome. Oh, it's actually, what are we complaining about here? Okay, so we just need to make sure, get recent projects query. And what does a project look like? Project and manufacturer model. So we just want to make sure TypeScript doesn't complain. And that's what it's complaining about. It's just saying, hey, it's missing the things that we need because we're just applying an object. It doesn't know. But that's okay for now. Let's look. So I want to see, we have Toyota. There we go. Because we've just selected Toyota, it's just showing us Toyotas. If we say, I want Hilux, boom, I want Prado, done. There's a couple of little things. So before we fix that type error, I just want to do a couple of other little things. So we want to have, okay, I want to go Volkswagen, great. What about Chevy? Nothing, right? So we need to have, hey, you don't have any results. So here we go. So it looks like when there are no results, what we want to do, so it's like no projects.length. Perfect. We want to say text. Oh, look at that. See? Thank you, CodePilot. Now we only want to render this if we do have results. So it's projects.length. We double bang, so exclamation here, so that we can convert that into a Boolean. So that's that. Now we should have, sorry, no results found. Don't need margin top. So we probably want this in a box of sorts. Does Chakra have us like a little notice box? Notice. Alert. No, I don't want a feedback. Disclosure. No. So what we can do? Let's just chuck it into a flex here. We're going to give it some padding. We want to give it a border. Let's just see what we're getting. Okay. We don't want the text to have the margin. Yep. We want to give it a border radius. Great. Border color. Color equals I think it's gray 100. That'll do. No results found. Cool. So we got that, got results, and then I think what was here is add a build. So a button to add a build if there were no results. So maybe what we can do here is have a link to say add a build. So we can go here, link, add a build. That's interesting. What are you doing there, Chief? Yeah, and then we'll give it a little margin left, or 1. And we'll bold that, I think. And add a build, where does that take us? That takes us to projects new. So we're going to go href projects new, right? There we go. Awesome. So that's browse. Cool. So we got that. Let's go back to our Ford. Friends at Ford. Just double check when you click on that it actually works. Yes, it does. Awesome. And that's the great thing actually, because we're using URLs here. If we go in, when we come back, it's still the same. So we're not having to remember state, which is very handy. Okay, so let's see what we can go next. What I want to just quickly check is this, see if we can get this type error fixed. So let's look where we're using projectile and just see if we're defining the types anywhere. So that's similar projects. Okay, so we can do, so with results, we're going to have to do this. So we're going to say import prisma, and projects is going to be prisma dot get projects. Excuse me while I get familiar with this. Projects get payload. So it's projects get payload. Get projects get payload. Interesting. Why are you not there? Project get payload probably. Project get payload. Yep. And then what else do we need? So what does that look like? So what are we doing? So we need to look in here. What are we doing? What are we including? So we're including these things. All of these things. So we expect that to look like this. Right? And now we're not complaining anymore. But why is this an any type? That's interesting. Oh, it's an array of these. Cool. Looks good. That'll work. TypeScript's happy. Now, the one thing that we also noticed was when we have the search empty, so if you just came into this page, and then you just went into, can you see this? Models, just sitting there like a loser. So what we need to do is go, when there are only render this, when we actually have models. So we want to say dot length, and then just remember to convert this into a Boolean. And also we might not have that yet. So let's just do this. That's just a safety. I actually think we are forced in the hook. We're defaulting it. So the only reason you need to do that question mark is if you weren't doing this, because we're always defaulting it to an empty array. So technically you could actually not have that there, because it's always something. Cool. So now you can see there's no models there. Now when we hit forward, our results filter, now we have our models. Cool. So that's it. that's pretty much all that we need to do there, because we've got browsing, we've got filtering, and we end up with the results. We can click through the results and away we go. We're also showing if there's nothing there, we're showing no results, add a build. Very basic, very simple, lots of room for improvement. But that gets us going. The only other thing that we can probably do is we can add a little search, probably a little search icon there, and probably add it to this other thing over here. So we can quickly do that. Let's see how we go. That's fine. All right, let me just close these windows out. So what we need to do is find the header component right here. So we're showing the logged in user. So what we want to show here is basically just a search button. So that's going to be a circle. So how are we going to do this one? So we need an icon. Chakra has a... Okay, so we're using React icons. We can look for fi search. Yep. Let's just use for now a box. Chuck it here. Box. And we're going to pass in fi search. Where are we using the menu? There we go. Actually, yeah, this is a link. So we're going to say as a href, we're going to just take us to this search page. Okay, cool. Then what we want to do is we want to say border equals 1 pixel solid. We're going to say border color is gray 200. Great. We want to match the user, logged in user. So what is this sitting at? This is sitting at 28 by 28. And we want a border radius of 100%. So we're going to go bang, fix this up, chuck that in, sort those guys, push this in. And we're going to say border radius 100%. Got to hit save. Nice one. Now we're going to say align, so we're probably going to have to turn this into a flex. Justify content, center. Great. I'm just going to turn this into a flex. Great. Font size, drop that down a bit. That's awesome. And then we need margin right is equal to 4, too much. Okay, so see how the logo's moving? I don't want that. So definitely don't want that. I want the logo to sit center. So what we need to do is just chuck these two inside of a flex themselves so that this is actually that's not going to do anything. That's fine. So it's just centering itself in the center of those two things. So the way you'd actually fix this is you'd have to make the left and the right items exactly the same and then get them. So we need the burger menu on the left to be X and the stuff on the right to be X as well. And then you could center between, but I don't care about that too much right now. I think that's okay. So now when we click so if we go to our home page, we've got a little search icon here. We can just hit search. That's going to pull us into browse projects and that's beautiful, ready to go. So that's very cool. I actually don't think we need search in this menu because we've got it on the nav everywhere else. So anywhere we go down the road, we can just go, yep, let's go back to browse, and away we go. So that's browse projects. We also want to be able to add in browse by part. So that'll probably be the next piece that we'll do. But until then, that's it. Thank you very much.